Solomon is one of the most iconic kings in history, known as one of the most prosperous and wealthy rulers of all time. In the Bible, he is highlighted not only for succeeding his father, King David, on the throne of Israel, but also for his exceptional wisdom and extraordinary works, the most notable being the first temple of Jerusalem. Although Solomon is only mentioned in the Bible after the last days of David, his name appears about 300 times in the Old Testament and at least 12 times in the New Testament. Additionally, he is cited in other non-biblical texts and involved in Jewish legends that associate him with mystical and even obscure practices, such as the alleged control of demons. In this video, you will discover the true story of Solomon according to the Bible. Solomon, the son of David and Bathsheba, was born when David was already reigning in Jerusalem and is also called Jedediah in the Bible, meaning beloved of the Lord. He ruled Israel for approximately 40 years, from around 971 to 931 BC. Little is known about Solomon's childhood, but based on biblical information about David's family life, we can imagine he grew up in an environment full of intrigues and power struggles due to David's many wives and children. Solomon's ascent to the throne occurred amid significant tension in the royal family, as David was old and frail. Absalom, Solomon's half-brother, had already tried to usurp the throne unsuccessfully, and later Adonijah, another of David's sons, attempted the same by proclaiming himself king. When Bathsheba, the prophet Nathan, the priest Zadok, and other allies discovered Adonijah's plan, they acted swiftly to remind David of his promise that Solomon would be his successor. David then ordered Solomon's ascension to the throne, and he was crowned king of Israel, probably at the age of 18. Solomon's reign was long, lasting about 4 decades. After David's death, Solomon followed his father's instructions and consolidated his position as king by eliminating any opposition. He ordered the execution of Adonijah and Joab and banished Abiathar, ensuring an uncontested reign. Solomon inherited a vast territory from David, approximately 128,000 square miles. During his reign, he significantly improved Israel's internal conditions, replacing the old tribal divisions with 12 administrative districts, each overseen by an officer responsible for providing sustenance for the royal court for 1 month a year. The daily provisions were extensive, including large quantities of flour, oxen, sheep, rams, servants, gazelles, deer, and well-treated birds. Although some may think this amount of food is exaggerated, it should be remembered that it was intended for the entire court of Israel, including officials, officers, and the royal family. It is estimated that these provisions fed over 12,000 people daily. Solomon's court was well organized, and his government aides were known as princes within a well-structured military system. King Solomon introduced remarkable innovations during his reign. He enhanced his army with chariots and cavalry, and improved infrastructure with new roads and border fortresses to protect trade routes. Commerce was the highlight of his reign. By controlling trade routes and strategic points, Solomon made silver as common as stones in his kingdom, living amid a splendor of wealth never before seen in Israel. Solomon was a skilled diplomat, and during his reign, Israel rarely had to worry about foreign military threats. His first significant trade agreement was with Hiram, king of Tyre, in which he annually paid around 2,000 tons of wheat and 400,000 liters of pure olive oil in exchange for timber for whole constructions. He also made contracts with Egyptian merchants for the purchase of horses and chariots, which he then exported to the Hittites and Syrians, earning a good profit. Solomon's greatest source of profit was maritime trade, with his ships sailing the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea to Ophir. These voyages could last up to 3 years. The annual revenue from his trade strategies, fees on the traffic of goods, and taxes on the population resulted in a wealth that made Solomon one of the richest men in history. Among all his constructions, the temple in Jerusalem was the most important. According to God's promise, Solomon executed his father David's plan to build a temple to house the Ark of the Covenant. To secure the necessary workforce, Solomon employed subjugated Canaanite people but also recruited Israelites, causing some discontent. The temple was built on Mount Moriah, where David had erected an altar to the Lord and where Abraham had offered Isaac in sacrifice. Construction began in the 4th year of Solomon's reign and was completed in the 11th year, using tons of gold and fine woods. When the temple was finished, Solomon organized a grand celebration with many sacrifices. Besides the temple, other notable constructions by Solomon include the house of the Sheph Forest of Lebanon, 50 meters long, 25 meters wide, and 15 meters high, a colonnade 25 meters by 15 meters, a throne room for judgments, and a house for Pharaoh's daughter, one of his wives. Solomon's residence was grand, accommodating 700 wives, 300 concussed, and the necessary servants. He also built a large fortress to protect the temple. Apart from his wealth, Solomon is known for his wisdom. The Bible recounts the dream in which God offered him anything he desired, and Solomon asked for wisdom to govern his people prudently. One of the most famous episodes highlighting his wisdom is when 2 mothers disputed the custody of a newborn. With no witnesses, Solomon suggested dividing the baby in 2. The true mother, preferring to save her child's life, gave up her claim, revealing herself. This judgment exemplified Solomon's impeccable wisdom. Solomon's wisdom is also evident in the literature he produced, leaving a legacy of knowledge and prudent governance. King Solomon's legacy is marked by his incredible wisdom and his prolific contributions to literature. He composed thousands of proverbs and songs, showcasing a profound understanding of nature, animals, birds, reptiles, and fish. His wisdom is not only celebrated in the Bible, but also in numerous ancient legends and documents. Solomon is credited with authoring a significant portion of the Book of Proverbs, as well as Ecclesiastes, the Song of Solomon, and Psalm 72 and 127. The Bible recounts that Solomon's wisdom attracted people from all over the world, including rulers from distant lands. One of the most notable visitors was the Queen of Sheba, who traveled from afar to test Solomon, challenging questions and riddles. Solomon answered all her inquiries with great intelligence, leaving her thoroughly impressed. During her visit, the Queen of Sheba presented Solomon with many gifts, including over 4 tons of gold. Despite his wisdom, Solomon made several decisions that brought great trouble. He imposed heavy labor on the people and engaged in international trade practices that introduced idolatry to Israel. His excessive taxation burdened the Israelites, and his numerous marriages, which were part of his political alliances, led to the worship of foreign gods. Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines, many of whom influenced him to stray from his faith. Notably, he married the daughter of the Pharaoh of Egypt, receiving the city of Gezer as part of the dowry. Arab, Jewish, and Ethiopian traditions suggest that Solomon had a romantic relationship with the Queen of Sheba, resulting in a son who became the founder of the Ethiopian royal dynasty. However, the Bible does not mention this. Solomon's heir, Rehoboam, was born to Naamah, an Ammonite woman. Considering Rehoboam's age at Solomon's death, it is believed that Naamah might have been Solomon's first wife. Solomon's greatest downfall was his turn to idolatry in his old age, influenced by his foreign wives. This angered God, who, although merciful, allowed adversaries to rise against Solomon as instruments of divine justice. Notable among these were Hadad the Edomite, Rezin, and Jeroboam. Jeroboam, a strong and industrious leader, rebelled against Solomon's policies and later became the king of the northern tribes of Israel, dividing the kingdom after Solomon's death. Solomon's reign, which started with immense wisdom and unmatched wealth, ended in a melancholic decline. He left behind a kingdom on the brink of ruin. However, his contributions to Israel were significant. He built the temple of the Lord, established Israel's international prominence, and was a major figure in Hebrew wisdom literature. When discussing the many extra-biblical stories about Solomon, it's important to remember that there is no concrete evidence of their veracity. The Bible itself mentions the existence of records about Solomon, including documents like the Book of the History of Solomon, which served as sources for the authors of the books of 1st and 2nd Kings. Unfortunately, these materials have been lost over time and no longer exist. What remains are merely legends and fanciful writings, primarily from followers of a later mystical branch of Judaism. In these legends, Solomon is often depicted as a magician capable of controlling demons and conversing with animals. However, these accounts are based on pseudepigraphical writings of unknown authorship, likely produced during the medieval period. It's unfortunate that many people, without adequate knowledge, believe in the authenticity of these fictional works and reject what is documented in the Bible, which is the most well-documented work in history. Some even claim that the true story of Solomon was hidden from the Bible, but this doesn't make sense, as the mystical stories about Solomon emerged long after the Old Testament texts. Regarding archaeology, most archaeologists agree on Solomon's historicity, although there are debates about the extent and characteristics of his kingdom. Recent discoveries have contributed to a more complete understanding of the period of the Israelite monarchy. However, excavations in the area where Solomon's temple was located are problematic due to political and religious issues. Therefore, what we reliably know about Solomon is what is recorded in the Bible. The most important thing to understand is that all the glory and splendor of Solomon's kingdom prefigure the eternal kingdom of the Messiah. Psalm 72, attributed to Solomon, uses hyperbolic language to refer both to the human king and the divine king, who is Christ. Solomon is a figure who continues to fascinate many people, both for his grand achievements and for the myths that have formed around him. His wisdom, wealth, and constructions, such as the magnificent Temple of Jerusalem, left a lasting legacy. Even though the mystical stories are intriguing, it is essential to distinguish between what is fiction and what is factual. If you've read this far, leave a comment about what you think of Solomon's story, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching, and may God be with you.